anglers, welcome to yet another video of Aaron at the Fly Desk, brought to you by Angler Made. And today I will be tying a fly I call the Silver Slayer. And this is a fly, it's primarily a salmon fly. I went up to Alaska for the first time with one of these flies and caught my first silver salmon on a fly rod, and it was an absolute riot. I absolutely loved it. I got addicted to it, and we now go to Alaska almost every year that we can. So what we're going to do first on this fly is I'm going to get some crystal flash, and I'm going to get quite a bit. And the cool thing about this fly is it'll catch all types of salmon, really. But I've also used these right at ice off to catch some big rainbows and tigers, believe it or not. Because it's not a huge fly, but it is big enough that big fish like to eat it. So that is the goal. So we're going to put just a little tail there with some crystal flash, and I like to use reds and pinks, especially for silver salmon. And so we're going to put on some pink crystal braid. I'm going to go all the way up to the bead of the hook. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some olive rabbit zonker, and it's the barred olive, so it's kind of olive and black, and that is what we're going to use on the top part of this fly. So what I like to do is not make it too long, but make it long enough to where it's gonna give us some movement in the water. So the first thing I'll do is I'm gonna tie that down. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tie my body on next. I'm just going to wrap each wrap just barely over the back of the other one. Then we're going to go right up to the bead, and I'm going to pull it tight, and you can see how it just sets inside that bead and pinches it, which is exactly what we want. We want to get some material behind that bead so it presses it up against the eye of the hook as well. Okay, this part gets a little bit tricky, but it's a really cool way to do these flies. So I'm going to get some UV glue. I'm just going to put some thick right across the top, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that in without getting any of my fibers on the glue. Then I'm going to hit that with my UV light. And what that does is it allows that zonker strip to adhere to the body, and so when a big fat salmon grabs onto it, it's less likely to tear it completely apart. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to get some more of this glue, and we're going to put another little bead on this. And if you noticed, I actually got my bead all the way up to the bead. just let that cure for a minute. And we'll do one along this side as well. And this does two things. Number one, it makes your flies a lot stronger. And when you're fishing salmon flies, they can get pretty teethy. So I like my flies nice and durable. And we're going to do one more bead on this side. I try really hard not to get any fibers in this. Okay, so you can see it gives it a nice wet look. Adds a little bit more to the fly. So we will then cut this excess off. Get our curved scissors in there. Okay. Alright. Okay, next thing we're going to do, we're going to put a white zonker on the bottom, like so. And when I'm setting my zonker strips, what I like to do is cut them in kind of a point, like that. So then when I'm tying them on the hook, they set better. Like so. I'm very liberal with my thread on these, so I want to get it all packed in nice and tight. The beauty of using rabbit zonkers is the movement they give in the water. Whoops, I didn't give myself enough room. Okay, we're going to now cut this off. Then what I do is I take this and I hook by hook into the material, the leather part of the zonker, the under edge, and I pull it onto the hook like that. And what that does is it hides my hook, like so. So much that I can't put it back in the vise. And there you have a nice, fluffy rabbit hair zonker, whatever you want to call it. And it's got a little bit of the crystal flash coming through there, a little bit of pink. Alright, the last part on this fly, what I like to do is give it some life. The best way that you can give life to your flies is some big, nice eyes. So what I do is I put a little bit of dab of super glue, and then I get one of these eyes. And most of them have a little bit of stick on them. But not quite enough. But that stays. I'll put one on the other side. Just a little dab of super glue. Okay, once I'm to that point, I'll then get my UV glue and I will fill up the gap in between. So what it does is that big glob of UV glue, it sets in between both of those eyes and onto the bead. So once that's cured, I'll flip it around. I'll do the same thing on the bottom, careful not to gather any of the rabbit hair material. Okay, get that nice and cured. Alright, so now you see you've got a nice minnow head, just about to swallow an egg, and then you've got plenty of zonker rabbit hair. You can see why a big trout would eat this fly, especially a brown, is it does resemble a rainbow trout. And so these are fun to use on creeks and rivers. Just strip it through a nice deep pool and the fish can't resist it. So that, my friends, is what I call the silver slayer. Caught my first silver salmon on a fly just like this. So thank you for watching this episode of Aaron at the Fly Desk, brought to you by Angler Made.